Good day, everyone. We are the Group 8, and our report is Chapter 8, The Strategic Alliances and Networks, from the Book of Paul Trotz, entitled Innovation Management in New Product Development. Strategic alliances provide access to resources that are greater than any single firm could buy. This can greatly improve its ability to create new products, bring in new technologies, penetrate other markets, and reach the scale necessary to survive in world markets. Collaboration with other firms, however, can take many forms. Virtually all firms have networks of suppliers, and in some cases, this can form part of a firm's competitive advantage. Defining strategic alliances, the go-it-alone strategy and the octopus strategy. Complementary capabilities and embedded technologies. Inter-firm knowledge, sharing routines. Forms of strategic alliances, licensing. These topics will be explained by Demero Diana Grace. Supplier relations, outsourcing, joint venture, collaboration, non-joint ventures, research and development consortia, industry cluster. These topics will be explained by Sir Vito Danica. Low technology industry rely on networks for innovation, innovation networks, the virtual company, motives for establishing an alliance, the process of forming a successful strategic alliance, negotiating a licensing deal. These topics will be explained by Escalante Ara Mary. Terms for the agreement, rights granted, license restrictions, improvements, consideration, monetary value. These topics will be reported by Cortez Anijoy. Reports and auditing of accounts, representations or warranties, infringement, confidentiality, arbitration. These topics will be reported by Diocton Antoinette. Termination, risk and limitation with strategic alliances, the role of trust in strategic alliances, the concept of trust, innovation risk in strategic outsourcing. These topics will be reported by Erideros Michelle. Eating you alive from the toes up, the use of game theory to analyze strategic alliances, game theory and the prisoner's dilemma, use of alliances in implementing technology strategy, case study, and the winner is Sony's Blu-ray, the high-definition DVD format war. These topics will be reported by Fakura Camille. The strategic alliances are cooperative agreements between two or more companies or parties that must work together and share their resources and informations for the purposes to achieve a common objective. The partners must provide the strategic alliances with the resources such as products, because one of the major factors that prevents them from achieving their objectives is the lack of resources. Because for the research and development, the insufficient resources are usually capital and technical critical mass. What is critical mass? The critical mass of a fissionable material depends upon its nuclear properties, specifically its nuclear fission cross-section, density, shape, enrichment, purity, temperature, and surroundings. The question is, what does it mean to reach critical mass? It is the point at which a growing company becomes self-sustaining and no longer needs additional investment to remain economically viable. The intra-industry and inter-industry. The intra-industry refers from the inside or within a company, but the inter-industry is a collaboration of two or more groups. For example, the three major U.S. automobile manufacturers have formed an alliance to develop technology for an electric car. This is an example of an intra-industry alliance, and is in response to U.S. legislation requiring a certain percentage of U.S. cars to be gasoline-free by 2020. The UK pharmaceutical giant GlaxoSmithKline has established many inter-industry alliances with a wide range of firms from a variety of industries. It includes companies such as Matsushita, Canon, Fuji, and Apple. The prisoner's dilemma is full of word trust, and it is also in a part of the octopus strategy because of the competition. Each person has the choice between behaving opportunistically, which is the defection, and responsibly, which is the cooperation. The best possible outcome is multilateral cooperation. But it is difficult to realize because each person benefits unilaterally from defection. It helps us understand between cooperation and competition, particularly in business. The Silicon Valley, located in the South San Francisco Bay Area of California. It is home to dozens of major technology, software, and internet companies. The word silicon refers to the large number of silicon chip innovators and manufacturers in the region. The word valley refers to the Santa Clara Valley, where the region traditionally has been centered, which includes the city of San Jose and surrounding cities and towns. Silicon Valley is a home for businesses. There are many booths or places with different brands, particularly the big six of Silicon Valley: the Apple, Alphabet or Google, Facebook, Wells Fargo, Visa, and Chevron. Also, it has a different headquarters. They are going to collaborate on others to gather new ideas so that other brands are having a physical equivalent. The Stanford University is also located close by and has a large postgraduate population. Many of its graduates take up positions in the region with large and small firms. Many have started their own business. The Go It Alone strategy and the Octopus strategy. The Go It Alone strategy is a strategy on your own. Good for a Go It Alone strategy is that a little risk that you are taking, but it is more difficult because you are the only one that can think of a new ideas and will provide a resources. While on the Octopus strategy, those tentacles are referring to the people and their strategy, which is more helpful because of the sharing ideas and sharing of resources can easily reach the technical objectives of the businesses, because the outcome of sharing ideas and resources are providing opportunities to expand into new markets. The tangled web illustrates all brands that are connected through other brands are coping up ideas to make a new product, because they will not make a new product without the ideas of others. So, they are having a seminar on sharing ideas and information to other brands. Therefore, they gather ideas to make something new and they can use what they are learning from other brands. Established firms such as Sony, IBM, and HP have developed global brands and sophisticated distribution infrastructures. But these are of limited value in the computer hardware industry without a constant stream of new products and technologies. Companies that are sharing their products to other companies to make a new product. For example, the Apple, Samsung, and Sony. The screen of Apple is from Samsung, and the camera sensor of Apple is from Sony. You share ideas that you think will help to grow your product so that you really need to be firm in your organization and help them with what they should do and know how to do. And by being knowledgeable about making a product, you will be able to innovate the product faster but good quality. Licensing is a business arrangement in which one company gives another company permission to manufacture its product for a specified payment. It involves allowing company to use patents, trademarks, copyrights, designs, and other intellectual in exchange for a percentage of revenue or a fee. It is a relatively common and well-established method of acquiring technology, but it is not involved about the relationships between firms, but the licensing another firm's technology often is the beginning of a form of collaboration.
Supplier relations refers to a close working relations of the firms with their supplier, affiliations with the companies that supply your business with goods and services. Many firms have established close working relations with their suppliers, and without realizing it, may have formed an informal alliance. Usually, these are based on cost benefits to a supplier. For example, a lower production cost that might be achieved if a supplier modifies a component so that it fits more easily into the company's product. Reduce R&D expenses based on information from a supplier about the use of its products in the customer application. Improve material flow bought by reduced inventories due to changes in delivery frequency and lot sizes, and reduce administration's cost through more integrated informational systems. There are two levels of supplier relations. The simplest level, called good customer relationship, wherein supplier will provide additional discounts and services for a good customer, such as obtaining unusual equipment requests and making special deliveries. The next level is closer working relationship, wherein supplier becomes more involved in the firm's business and they share experience, expertise, knowledge, and investments such as developing a new product. Outsourcing. Outsourcing refers to the delegation of non-core operation from internal provision or production to an external entity specializing the management of that operation. It involves the transferring or sharing management control and decision-making of a business function to an outside supplier. This is the one of the strategies that helps a business to cut the cost and improve their bottom line. In outsourcing, you can hire a party outside the company to perform services and create goods that traditionally were performed in-house by the company's own employees and staffs. Joint venture. Joint venture refers to a separate legal entity with the partners to the alliance, normally being equity shareholders. It is a cooperative arrangement between two or more business entities, often for the purpose of starting a new business activity. One of the examples of joint venture is Sony Ericsson. Sony Ericsson was a joint venture between Ericsson of Sweden and Sony of Japan. It was established to set design, manufacture, and distribute mobile phones. Collaboration, non-joint ventures. The absence of legal entity means that such arrangements tend to be more flexible. This provides opportunity to extend the cooperation over time if so desired. Collaboration, also known as cooperative agreements, means the parties seek technical service arrangements, franchise and brand use agreements, management, contracts or rental agreements, or one-time contracts for projects. Research and Development Consortia. R&D is an acronym of Research and Development. Consortia is a plural word of consortium, means association of two or more individuals, companies, organizations, or governments, or any combination of these entities with the objective of participating in a common activity or pooling their resources for achieving a common goal. R&D consortia is made up of two or more individuals, companies, or governments that works together to achieving a common objective. This is formed by manufacturing companies, often with the support of government, for the purpose of conducting shared research on new technologies, for the benefits of the consortium member companies. R&D consortia includes sharing the cost and risk research and setting standards. Industry clusters, also known as competitive cluster or Porterian cluster, was introduced and popularized by Michael Porter in Competitive Advantage of Nations in 1990. Industry clusters means groups of similar and related firms defined geographic area that share common markets, technologies, workers, skills needs, and which often link by buyer and seller relationship. Clusters, a geographic concentration of interconnected companies, specialized suppliers, service providers, and associated institutions in a particular field that are present in a nation or a region. Clusters pose a paradox. In theory, location should no longer be a source of competitive advantage. The most famous examples are found in Silicon Valley and Hollywood, but clusters dot the world landscape. Porter explains how clusters affect competition in three broad ways. First, by increasing the productivity of companies based in the area. Second, by driving the direction and pace of innovation. And third, by stimulating the formation of new businesses within the clusters. Competitive advantage lies increasingly in local things: knowledge, relationship, motivation, and that distance rival replicate.
Low technology industry involved rely on networks for innovation. The food industry traditionally has experienced very low levels of investments in R&D. Yet, it has delivered both product and process innovation over a sustained period. In such environment, innovation can be explained through learning by doing and the use of networks for interactions and extensive tacit knowledge. Doing, using, and interacting, or DUI, is the mode of an innovation or extensive on-the-job problem solving that occurs and where the firms interact and share experiences. The firms were engaged in a collaborations with external agents tend to be more innovative than the firms that rely on their own resource for innovation. Okay, let's move on to innovation networks. The use of the term network has become increasingly popular. It is the new form of organization offering a sort of virtual organization. Terms such as web or cluster are also used to describe this on a similar phenomenon. Others believe them to be nothing more than a new label for firms, range of supplier and market relationships. Like for example, brand management firm like Nike. Nike are frequently regarded as network firms because Nike essentially owns and manages the brand and relies on an established network of relationships. Okay, let's go to the virtual company. More recently, the idea of a virtual company has begun to emerge. Virtual company is where every aspect of the business is outsourced and run by unknown suppliers. The virtual organization has an almost infinite variety of structures. All of them are fluid and changing. Most of them need virtually no employees. The process of defining the virtual organization is a gradual one. As companies withdraw more and more into their core companies, so they become more virtual. Let's go to the motives for establishing an alliance. Frequently, alliance will have multiple objectives. For example, an alliance may seek to access technology, gain greater technical critical mass, and share the risk of future technology development. These tables are the list of the most common reasons critical for entering a strategic alliance. Next is the process of forming a successful strategic alliance. The formation of a strategic alliance is a three-step process. It begins with the selection of the right partner. It is depend on what required and the motivation for the strategic alliance. And after that, it is followed by negotiations based on each partner's need. The third stage is the management towards collaboration. This last step encompasses a wide range of activities, including joint goal setting and conflict resolution. Okay, let's move on to negotiating a licensing deal. The most common form of alliance is the well established licensing agreement. Licensing deals are just a deal struck between two parties. There is not a correct or an incorrect one, simply an agreement where two parties agree to do business that usually result in benefits for both. Since most people engage in deal making, it is involved in multiple deals, and at the same time it is important that the aspect can be forgotten or overlooked at any time and for any deal.
Terms for the agreement. In business, you and your partners in company have a contract or agreement so that each party agrees to an exchange typically involving money, goods, or services. The contracts protect both buyers and sellers by reducing agreements by writing. In business, contracts are typically either sales agreement for the sales of goods or service agreement for the sales of services. A good contract negotiation benefits both the parties and achieves a fair deal. You should negotiate with an objective to build a business relationship with the other party and create a contract that helps both of you meet your respective business goals. Dealing with contract is part of running a small business. You will have a number of business relationships involving some type of contractual commitment or obligation. If you're dealing with business contracts, you need to be able to speak the language. Rights granted. The contract have the list where the owner and shareholder have the rights in business. Each organization will find that it tends to make deals in a certain way and may find that certain combinations of great language will be used repeatedly. In that case, this section may be easily amended to the specific organization needs. Both sides should conclude a negotiation feeling comfortable and happy with the agreement. Remember that if you want to do more business with the supplier in the future, you should aim to strike a deal that both parties are happy with. Make sure both sides are satisfied with what is being negotiated. You also need to be aware of common negotiating tactics. If the other party keeps referring to urgent deadlines or a person they need to confer with, remember, they may be using pressure tactics. Use such tactics yourself with cautions. License restrictions. A licensing agreement is contract between two parties in which a property owner permits another party to use that property under a specific set of parameters. A licensing agreement typically involves a licensor and a licensee. Inventors intent on approaching large companies to license their inventions should realize that they are negotiating anytime they try to influence potential licensees. Licensing refers to the practice of granting limited rights to another party who is permitted to use intellectual property such as your patent or copyrighted works, subject to specific terms and conditions. Improvements. The licensor or licensee have the list of improvements by whom and paid for by whom. Licensee will own licensee improvement including all rights to any new know-how, trade secret, development, innovation, patent application. Licensor may elect at its own expense to prepare, file, and prosecute such patent applications. A good negotiation leaves each party satisfied and ready to do business with each other again. Everyday business improvements are the lifeblood of the success of your company. Continuous business improvements are the basis for your competitive advantage. in making an effective agreement with someone else is understanding their needs. Consideration. With care, consideration of the terms, new companies can generate licensing revenue, limit risk, and protect future options. Growth can put a strain on your cash flow, your production capacity, or ability to deliver services. Be sure your business is stable. Carefully research your ideas and consider the impact on your operations. Consider whether you and your team are fully committed to making the effort. If you are ready to move ahead, take a look at the ways to grow your business and some of the general activities you may need to do to achieve your goals. Similarly, if the terms are so expensive that the licensee cannot recover the investment and subsequently make a profit over the life of the contract, the licensee will fail before it ever gets off the ground. Successful licensors keep the end in mind and practice win-win negotiating tactics. A smart licensee will have identified several choices of brands from which to acquire a license and will set limits on what deal terms they will accept regardless of their brand preference.
Reports and auditing of the accounts. The issue of establishing the levels of royalties can be tricky. Firms rely on the licensor to inform them to be the actual level of sales achieved. The auditor's report is a written letter from the auditors containing the opinion of whether a company's financial statements comply with generally accepted accounting principles or GAAP. The independent and external audit report is typically published with the company's annual report. The audit report is used by many stakeholders, including the entity's management, the board of directors, shareholders, investors, government bodies, banks, and many others. In most cases, the audit report is issued to cover financial statements over 12 months or a year period. Representations warranties. Certain basic representation and warranties need to be given by each party to the other, such as the ability to enter into the agreement, the validity of the intellectual property, and the standard warranty disclaimer. A representation is a statement of fact that induces a party to enter into the contract, the statement made before or at the time of making the contract regards a past fact or existing circumstance related to the contract which influences such party to enter the contract. A warranty is a contractual assurance from a seller to a buyer. It is a subsidiary or collateral provision to the main purpose of the agreement, the sale itself. In a contract for the supply of goods or services, a warranty is an assurance provided by one party to other party about the quality of goods or services to be provided. Generally, breach of a warranty gives a right to claim damages. A representation is an assertion as to a fact, true or the date the representation is made, that is given to induce another party to enter into a contract or take some other action. A warranty is a promise of indemnity if the assertion is false. Infringement. The agreement needs to address issues associated with infringement, will be handled, and if the IP is infringed by the third parties, how such infringement will be handled, and if there is a recovery for the infringement, how that will be divided between the licensor and licensee. Copyright infringement is the use of works protected by the copyright law without permission for a usage where such permission is required, thereby infringing certain exclusive rights granted to the copyright holder, such as the right to reproduce, distribute, display, or perform the protected work. Confidentiality. A confidentiality or non-disclosure agreement usually will have been signed prior to the license agreement to enable exploration of terms of businesses, etc. This should remain effective during the term of the license agreement. Involves a set of rules or a promise usually executed through confidentiality agreements that limits access or places restrictions on certain types of information. A confidentiality agreement defines the information to be kept private, but it doesn't list the actual information. Other types of confidential information might include client and suppliers list, sales and expenses, figures, and training techniques. One of the most important elements of confidentiality is that it helps to build and develop trust. It potentially allows for the free flow of information between the client and worker and acknowledges that the client's personal life and all the issues and problems that they have belong to them. Arbitration. In case of a major disagreement about the terms of an agreement, parties may wish to take the issue to arbitration. Arbitration can be carried out in many different ways, and it is easier to specify in the agreement the rules to be used for arbitration before there is an issue to arbitrate. An arbitration agreement is a written contract in which two or more parties agree to settle a dispute outside of court. The arbitration agreement is ordinarily a clause in a larger contract. Arbitration agreements are a way to limit litigation costs and keep dispute confidential. Arbitration agreements are everywhere these days, and chances are you've signed a few without even realizing it. You may have been agreed to arbitrate disputes when you click agree to a software license or when you purchase ordinary goods or services. By agreeing to arbitrate, you have certain rights while also gaining some benefits. Understanding the pros and cons ahead of time will help you make a smart decision when you've asked to sign.
Termination is the act of bringing something to an end. It is an employee's departure from a job and the end of an employee's duration with an employer. The areas to consider include the right of either party to end the agreement for no reason at all. It may be voluntary on the employee's part, or it may be at the hands of the employer, often in the form of dismissal or a layoff. When either you and your employer wants to end the employment relationship, you do so by terminating the contract of service. Termination can be with or without notice, or caused by employee misconduct. Termination of employment is one of the hardest things to do for the entrepreneurs, because they need to let go of someone who was on board. These are the common types of termination. 1. Due to layoff or downsizing. Layoff is an action by an employer to terminate employees for lack of work. Downsizing means releasing employees because the operation is no longer needs them. 2. Letter for a cause like misconduct, performance, and attendance. Misconduct is unacceptable or improper behavior, especially by an employee or professional person. Performance is defined as how an employee fulfills their job duties and execute their required task. Attendance is the hours of and days that employees show up for work. For employers, it is important to know if their employees are showing up as scheduled. 3. Business contract. An agreement entered into between an employer and an employee at the time the employee is hired. Remember, an employee who is not actively working because of an illness, leave of absence, or temporary layoff is still considered employee if the relationship with an employer has been terminated formally with a notice of termination. Risk and limitation with strategic alliances. It can lead to competition rather than cooperation, to lose competitive knowledge, to conflicts resulting from incompatible cultures and objectives, and to reduce management control. Competition has winners and losers, while the cooperation has only winners. Entrepreneurs must have a competitive knowledge when they innovate product. Risk limitation is a strategy designed to limit a company's exposure by taking some action or series of action. It is meant to lessen any negative consequences or impact of specific known risks, and it is most often used when risks are unavoidable. According to Arias, 1995, argues that interfirm networking may result not only in desired outcome, but also in negative consequences. For example, Sony and Ericsson 2001 and their joint venture is set up to handle a particular project with specific goals. If there's a risk and limitation with strategic alliances, it can harm a firm's ability to innovate, because innovation technically means to introduce a new idea to make it work better. Innovation in the workplace tend to refer to the process of introducing something new. That's why innovating product is more important if you have a business. Entrepreneurs should adapt in their environment for them to be able to provide what the society needs. You must have a good communication with your partner, because the act of communicating not only helps to meet your needs, but it is also helps you to be connected to your relationship, especially with your partner in workplace. It can lead to a decreased ability to innovate, and particular in technological change. The role of trust in strategic alliances. The business and management literature and accepted management thinking are predominantly optimistic in their belief that there is much to gain from strategic alliances and collaborative technology development. The meaning of predominantly optimistic is a person that thinks the best possible thing will happen and hopes for it even if it's not likely. Collaborative technology development means sharing knowledge and openness for successful organization learning. Business is conducted through relationship, and trust is the foundation of those relationships. For an organization, trust is super important part of their relationship. If you have trust to your workmate, it can increase productivity. The mutual trust and respect are essential for successful cooperation. The concept of trust. It is the leakage of sensitive information to competitors that is of most concern to the firms. Leakage means confidential information. Trust in the workplace may be transparent, direct, and honest. The organization needs to have a mutual trust with each other because trust is have to be earned. Trust is an important driver of superior alliance performance. Alliance managers are influential in their regard because trust requires active involvement, commitment, and dedicated support of the key actors involved in the strategic alliance. Despite the importance of trust for explaining alliance performance, little effort has been made to systematically investigate the mechanism that managers can use to purposefully create trust in strategic alliance. Trust are not the same as confidence, because being confident to something is the belief you have in yourself to carry out your job. Having this state of mind means you know your own skills, expertise, and what you're ultimately capable of. That's why trust is not the same as confidence. It is important to keep in mind that trust is practiced and exercised between individuals. The importance of building trust in alliances. According to Meyer L. at 712, trust is defined as the willingness of a party to be vulnerable to the action of another party, based on expectation that the other will perform a particular action important to the trustor. Innovation risk in strategic outsourcing. Outsourcing is the business practice of hiring a party outside a company to perform service and create goods that traditionally were performed in-house by companies' own employees and staff. Outsourcing can help small firms act big by giving them access to the same economies of scale, efficiency, and expertise that large companies enjoy. Outsourcing providers assumes and manage this risk for you, and they generally are much better at deciding how to avoid risk in their areas of expertise. It is also the practice of using outside firm to handle work normally performed within a company. It is a familiar concept to many entrepreneurs. Small companies routinely outsource their payroll processing, accounting, distribution, and many other important functions, often because they have no other choice. Many large companies turn to outsourcing to cut costs. In response, entire industry have evolved to serve companies' outsourcing needs.
Eating you alive from the toes up. There are innovation risks with outsourcing. Outsourcing was originally confined to peripheral business functions and mainly motivated by a cost-saving logic, but has now developed into a routine strategic management move that affects not only peripheral functions but the heart of the competitive core of organizations. At the same time, there is a move from traditional outsourcing with one or a small number of key partners and long-term contracts to strategic outsourcing with multiple partners and short-term contracts. Use of game theory to analyze strategic alliances. A company may enter into a strategic alliance to expand into a new market, improve its product line, or develop an edge over a competitor. The arrangement allows two businesses to work towards a common goal that will benefit both. So, game theory is applied for determining different strategies in the business world. For example, the deal between Starbucks and Barnes and Noble is a classic example of strategic alliance, wherein Starbucks brews the coffee while Barnes and Noble stocks the book. Both companies do their best while sharing the cost of space to the benefit of both companies. There are many other examples of alliances failing, some soon after inception, others after a long and successful relationship. The issue of trust is a critical element in any strategic alliance. It is important to note that trust usually is established over a long period of time, in much the same way as courtship prior to marriage. It involves understanding one another and building confidence in the relationship. In order to lose trust, however, one must have gained it in the first place. In a more serious proposition is that firms may enter a strategic alliance with a lack of trust in the other party. The issue of trust is the underlying theme of the prisoner's dilemma, which is I will discuss in the next section. So, prisoner's dilemma. The prisoner's dilemma, this is probably the most well-known of the games from the game theory. Most of us can out ourselves readily in the shoes of the prisoners behind bars, as he wrestles with the dilemma of which answers to give in order to achieve the best outcome. By Lou Oates. So participants have an intention to cheat or exploit their partners when payoff from non-cooperation is higher than that from cooperation. A prisoner's dilemma is a situation where individual decision makers always have an incentive to choose in a way that creates a less than optimal outcome for the individuals as a group. The use of alliance in implementing technology strategy. Strategic alliances can help companies both to leverage their technologies and to complement them by learning from partners. Drawing from comparative case analysis, this analyzes the managerial skills and organizational capabilities that allows companies to leverage and complement their technologies both through single alliances and through carefully built network of alliances. So next case study. So this case study explores the development of high-definition video and format war between Sony's Blu-ray and Toshiba's HD DVD. The competition between the companies attempting to develop a consumer format led to the release of three different mutually incompatible VCR formats: Sony Betamax in 1975, JVC's VHS in 1976, and the Philips V2000 in 1978. Two of these would come head-to-head in the 1980s in what became known as the First Format War. Before the technology battle could begin, the consumer electronics industry had to find an answer to a more pressing problem. So, the summary of this chapter has explored the role of the strategic alliances and how firms are increasingly recognizing that alliances provide access to resources that are greater than any single firm could buy. The main purpose was to highlight their growing importance within the world of business. This is further reinforced by the concept of industry clusters and networks. In some knowledge intensive industries such as the film industry, the role of alliances has been further developed. Many firms are understandably reticent about entering any form of collaboration, for they fear losing the small advantage that they perceive they have over their competitors. So, trust is frequently at the center of any decision on whether a firm enters an alliance, and usually trust has to be established over a period of time before firms agree to enter an alliance.